Welcome to today's Daily Walk in Wisdom. We're in the Song of Songs, 32 days in, and we're in chapter 3 and verse 5. This is the conclusion of the second section of the Song of Songs. I charge you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the roes and by the hinds of the field, that you stir not up nor awaken my love till it pleases. We arrive at the end of the second section of the book. The second section could be described as faltering love or vacillating love. This is the second time, if you recall, the second injunction by the king to the daughters of Jerusalem: do not stir up love until it's right. The bride is making her recovery, and the king seeks to protect her from those whose passions are immature and whose intentions are impure. And she requires a particular work of the Lord in her life. Her attention has got to be totally king-centered. Any carnal stimulation will derail her progression in God. All too often, the spiritually immature misread another's, when I say another's, I mean somebody else's condition, and will project their own state upon somebody else, giving unwanted and unhelpful counsel that they themselves are not even fulfilling. How about that? Beware your need to meddle in the affairs of another. It betrays a will to power. Beware your need to exert power over another, because that's the very opposite of how love works. And so the king orders the daughters of Jerusalem to leave the girl in his hands. That means Jesus tells people to leave you alone so that he can lead you himself. God is perfectly capable of taking care of his own. When we would rush people through the discipleship process, God knows just what to do and when to do it. We would have people quitting their smoking or quitting their drugs or stopping their alcoholic binges or their gambling. We would have them doing that immediately. But what if something else needs to take place before they have the strength to be able to say no to those particular things? Only God knows this. And so we have to leave people in God's hands. He knows just what to do. Of course, we know what's right and what's wrong. Even lost people really do know what's right and what's wrong. But it's for God to bring about his work in a person and not for us to stir those things up ahead of time. The city of Jerusalem is mentioned. It's the city the Shulamite searched thoroughly during the night in an attempt to find the one her soul loved. It's the city where the watchmen found her but could not help her. Remember, the city represents human endeavor, human achievement, man-made structures, systems. The city is society. And it is to the daughters of these structures that the king commands, be quiet. Do not stir up love whilst entangled in the web of the world, because you will invariably be misled. This is wisdom here, the wisdom of love. When Jesus said, render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's and to God the things that are God's, he was giving more than mere advice on how to handle your money. Jesus' reference to Caesar is said in the same light as the song references the city and Jerusalem. And Jesus was saying that there are certain aspects of your nature that belong to God and to him alone. Principally, things like your love and your devotion and your worship. Get this right and you will stand in right relationship to all things that are Caesar's. If you get things right with God, that will order your life to the point where the things that you need to render to Caesar are rendered properly. To Caesar and to all man-made organizations and institutions. Get it wrong and all manner of hell will break loose. The reason all manner of hell will break loose is that when we direct our love or our religious orientation or our soul, our being, whenever we direct it toward anything less than God, then we create incredible confusion or chaos inside our heart. Because our heart, designed as it is to love God, is stirred in the wrong direction, in an alternate way. And the result is chaos, internal chaos. And if you have internal chaos, it's not too long before the external world around you also falls into chaos. The biblical evidence for this is described in the Tower of Babel. Instead of directing their affection towards God, mankind aimed all of their ingenuity with intensity towards building the Tower of Babel. Babel is the city, the man-made substitute for true religion. And God said, if as one people speaking in one language they've begun to accomplish this, nothing they plan will be impossible to them. And when we stir up love towards inappropriate things and inordinate things, the man-made agendas, the projects and the businesses and the political parties, and we're actually rendering the things that are God's to Caesar. We're invoking our religious being and directing it away from God and towards something less than God. And then when we do that, we invoke all kinds of demons and we unleash all manner of chaos into our lives. It was for humanity's sake that God came down and confused the language of the builders of the Tower of Babel and scattered mankind all over the earth so that they stopped building the city. That's what it says. Stop. Remember, the city represents man-made structures, things that are oriented towards man, and they stopped pursuing doing things in man's way. That's why God came down and confused the language. Excuse me. In trying to explain the distinction between the church and the world, Augustine wrote about two cities. He said, 2 loves have formed 2 cities. The love of self has formed the earthly city, and the love of God has formed the heavenly one. Now that's why the king in the Song of Songs charges the daughters of Jerusalem to not stir up love inappropriately, because all love is issued by God, and all love must be called forth by God. Because God sends the love, pours his love into our hearts by the Holy Ghost, and God is the one that calls that love to come from us. The first section when we read the first section of the Song of Songs, it concluded with the Shulamite in the king's arms. The second ends with the second portion of her life, the second portion of the Shulamite's life. Even though she ended her first section in the king's arms, the second section began disastrously with the Shulamite doing her own thing and the king calling her to come with him, and the Shulamite saying, I'll just stay here and rest and relax and do my own thing. But it began in a bad place, but the second section finishes in a better place than before her regression. So this is the incredible nature of grace, that God will even use our failure to bring us closer to him. The enemy would use our weaknesses to drive us from God, but Jesus uses our failure to bring us closer to him than we've ever been before. And that is the wisdom of love. It is beyond understanding, but it is the way that the love of God works. And I pray that you'll receive a great dose of his love right now, and you'll realize, no matter where your failures have taken you, that God would use all of those things to draw you back to him and to bring you closer to him than you've ever been before. We'll see you again real soon.